Well, I'm happy to be here again. My name is Pamela Householder. I'm with Partners Resource Network, and we are bringing to you today the presentation of solving the employment puzzle. So let me go ahead and start that real quick. Hopefully, everybody can see that now. Partners Resource Network, like I mentioned last week, is the parent training and information centers for the state of Texas. We've had that contract through the Department of Education since '86. And we basically bring different webinars and different educations for parents and individuals with disabilities. Tonight's presentation is the solving of the employment puzzle, and the intent of the workshop is basically to encourage parents to consider what your student can do to help their employment opportunities by providing an introduction to what services are available and how to obtain them. We'll also discuss key factors to assist youth with disabilities become successfully employed. And you'll learn that parents and youth can ask that these practical hands-on strategies be included in an individual education plan. So all of these items that we'll cover tonight can be included in your student's IEP. And a lot of times you wonder, well, why, why is that important? Why should I have that? And we'll kind of go over the basics of that as we go along. So what does assist youth? Statistics tell us that 2 years after completing high school, youths with disabilities continue to experience higher rates of unemployment than their peers do. So this means any child that's gone through, graduated, and say they're looking at their turning 20 or 21, and compared to their other peers, they're experiencing the higher recurrence of unemployment. And they say 3 to 5 years post high school, 1 in 5 youth with disabilities were not employed and were no longer even seeking employment. And that statistic was kind of shocking to me, because I can't imagine at the age of 21 or even 24 just giving up on my employment. 14% of youth with disabilities compared to 53% of youth without disabilities were enrolled in post-secondary education. And so that's a daunting statistic in itself, because you really want to be able to have that aspiration that hopefully after high school, your student's going to go on to go to college or some kind of trade school or vocational education, something that's going to give them a career and a means to a viable job, something that should be able to support them going forward. So this is why we kind of mentioned this at the transition stage. I think last week we talked about transition to adulthood. This is all kind of key into getting your student from that high school to adulthood status. So what does this really mean for your student as far as employment? High school equals school district or required by law and identified and provide services to all students in their district. That's where self-determination, the school districts are involved in that aspect of it. But when you're looking at after or post-secondary schooling, there's not really any kind of state or federal mandate in regards to what your student can receive. So a lot of times the time to get prepared for that post-secondary is while they're still in high school. So you're going to want to get involved with their ongoing IEP goals to include things like self-awareness, self-advocacy, self-confidence, helping to be able to make decision-making skills, and being able to perform as independently as possible. These are all viable things to staying employed or getting gainful employment. So what's next? Career development is a key component for employment. And this could be anything from vocational school after secondary, things like high school, or even some of the high schools now, you can take what they call vocational classes through high school, and those classes can lead to actual employment afterwards. It's not always something that parents with children with disabilities take into consideration, and it's not something that's offered at every district, but it is something to consider that there are some, like I know my daughter's school district, they have culinary class and they have an automotive class. And so if you think that something that's more competitive is not in your child's future, but maybe they do like food prepping, or they like cooking, or they like baking, explore those options with the ARD committee about, what could my child be doing now in order to work towards that employment goal. And the key thing is beginning early. A lot of times parents panic, or even districts panic and say, well, we haven't really done anything to get this child from being in the education field to actually being a productive citizen. What do we do now? How are we gonna start? And so the new directive under the included in IDEA, and even what TEA states, is that the transition from the education to adulthood has to start earlier. So last week we mentioned about how most districts are starting 14, and even some are starting younger than that. And so that's what we mean by beginning early. A lot of the exploration of different careers can be started even when they're in junior high. Some of the programs that are available at different high school levels, they have junior high entry level position, actual classes to take that you can start your child in participating if they're able to do that, if their performance or if their present levels would allow them to be able to appropriately go to those classes. So you're going to want to access career participation opportunities, and this is going to help your student figure out, what would I like to do? What are some of my options ahead of me? And it would also give them workplace skills. So things like basic literacy, the computation skills, thinking skills, and personal qualities are things that are going to be taken into consideration in those achievable goals that would be written into your student's transition plan or their IEP. In addition to this foundation, workers should also have competencies in the following areas, such as managing resources, including or not limited to identifying, organizing, planning, and allocating resources, working amicably and productively with others, acquiring and using information, mastering complex systems and interrelationships. That's how do they get along with others? Can they take directions from somebody like a supervisor or somebody that's a mentor? And can they work with a variety of technology? And the great thing nowadays is there are so many different ways to be able to be in the workplace because of technology. So you want to talk to your student about a career plan and develop this along with their ARD committee. The ARD committee is going to want to know what their aspirations are so that they can start working on skills and things that are towards the goals that they're wanting to reach. They could also work on things like support needs, things that they would need in order to possibly seek the career that they want to pursue. And transition planning is what provides the students with both an understanding of and experiences in how academic skills are applied to their career goals. It empowers students to make informed and realistic career and life choices. So work experiences can also make high school academics relevant. A lot of times, you get that when we'll ever use this mentality. And by doing this career plan development, your student can actually see, why do I need to know this? Why is this important? How is this going to help me in the future? And it also helps them understand what services they might need in order to maintain consistent employment. And that's what we mean by support needs. So having employment goals in high school can also transition them into the selected career that they want to go into. It would also help them provide both an understanding of and experiences in how things that apply in the workplace that they're learning currently. So, and the more work experience that they get during high school will help them be able to maintain and keep employment after high school. So a lot of this that you're going to go through with your student for transition planning are going to be the key aspects that help them move into that realm of adulthood and being self-sufficient and possibly, having a role in a company or having a job to help in their own post-secondary needs. And this includes things like possibly going on to college, like what support needs would be needed in order for a child to go on to either a junior college or a state college. So those are things to take into consideration and always keep in mind when you're looking at the actual transition planning with the school district and the ARD committee. Anybody got any questions so far? Sorry if I'm going a little fast. This is a lot of information to take in, but basically, so far we've covered what does assist youth, and that's the self-determination, the key component of employment, career development, components for employment such as workplace skills, career planning, development, and having an employment goal in high school can help them transition into the adulthood and the world of the working adult. And this is all things to consider in the transition services or the transition planning like we talked about last week. So now we're going to move on to the IEP and adult service providers. This gets a little tricky sometimes because you think, I know when my daughters are I guess she hadn't quite turned 13, and they were talking about, well, what does she want to do after high school? And I'm like, well, I want to know what she's going to do to get through junior high first. And so I didn't really think that having an answer of what she was going to do after high school was relevant at the time. But because of the services that she needs in order to obtain that actual goal of possible employment, a lot of that has to be addressed now. They're going to the school is working on doing things as far as critical thinking, problem solving skills. They're working on her on task management and actually minding her time, like time management. And they're starting off, in baby steps, but we're doing more like picture schedules, and we're doing more of things that will help her be able to obtain those skills that an employer can use in order to provide employment to her. So you're looking at what do they need now in order to get to where they need to be, even if it is 5-6 years down the road. What do we need to start now in order to get there? And so that's where the IEP and the adult service providers come into play. They break it down to where do we need to start in order to receive, to get her to what she needs by the time she's 18, or what do we need in order to get her to the transition center and then hopefully past transition center into an actual job or some kind of even volunteer work, something like that, some kind of purpose for her future. And it even helps to have this transition plan in place for independent living possibilities. A lot of times students, you don't know that your student may not want to live at home forever. Sorry, my daughter's excited. You don't know if your student wants to live with you forever, or if they want to go and live out on their own, or if they want to live in a group home or some kind of independent living facility. There's a lot of different options nowadays out there for individuals with disabilities. And as a parent, it's your responsibility to really kind of figure out what your kid wants to do. What are their plans? What are their aspirations? What are their dreams? So this leads to school-based learning, which should also provide opportunities for students to demonstrate what they have learned. And it should also help them have self-advocacy skills to be pivotal for them to go in and practice interviewing for a job, disclosing his or her disability, having that conversation of how do you describe your disability to somebody or to a future employer? How would you let them know what kind of support you might need along with your disability in order to perform a job? Identifying helpful accommodations. This is where the support needs comes into place, and understanding how to request accommodations from an employer. A lot of times you may work on with your student on how does your autism affect you, or how does your particular physical disability affect you? What kind of things do you need from an employer in order to be able to perform your tasks that the employer is asking you to do? So, it's not enough just to explain to your child that they need to be able to explain their disability, but being able to work with your child and figuring out, well, how do I explain that to an employer, or how to explain what that really means as far as the employer's concerned? And, part of ADA helps in providing accommodations. Employers do have to provide accommodations to allow individuals with disabilities to be able to work. So that's where the school-based learning comes into play. A lot of times there'll be coaching on interviewing, coaching on just how to explain different services that they may need. And then you've got things such as work-based learning. And this is where some of the schools have the vocational schooling at the high school level. So they provide students an opportunity to learn, well, what would it be like to work in the culinary field? Or what would it be like to work in automotive? Or some schools even have early nursing programs, and a lot of very core curriculum items such as business and business administration, things like that. How to do data processing, how to do even not necessarily telemarketing, but how to answer phones, and how to actually schedule things. And they get pretty intensive in the different opportunities that they provide at a high school level to these students, so that they are prepared come graduation, that they could possibly walk into just about any employer and get an actual job. And so some of these also include job shadowing or mentorships. I know several school districts that have really great mentorship programs. And I mean, even things such as volunteering, how to volunteer out in the community and provide services that way. I mean, maybe their aspiration is not necessarily be employed, but to be able to volunteer. So that's where the work-based learning comes into play when a district is looking at IEP goals. And they'll even do things like field trips or a day in the life of what a receptionist might do. I mean, there's all kinds of different ways to reach that particular goal. And then you got the role of the family. I think I was talking to a mom earlier today, and I'm like, just explaining that family or parents are the most consistent role model in their child's life. And you can help establish employment supports or any kind of planning and skill building activities with your child. It's not just up to the school to do those things. These are things that can be established at home. And even if you don't even know where to start with that, you can even ask the school, how do I help them achieve this goal that they're wanting to get to? What are some of the steps that I can do at home to help them get there? And you can have other family members. I mean, a lot of time, you as a caregiver may not be employed, but well, your Aunt Rosa has worked in this dentist office for 20 years. Maybe you could spend a day with her and explore what it's like working at a dentist office. Or your uncle has done this, or you may have a cousin who works in this field and really enjoys his job. I mean, the opportunities are out there. It's a matter of actually creating the opportunity to explore those varying opportunities of different work and different career job choices. So the next step that we want to talk about is building employment skills. And good general work habits are important for all employees. I think everybody can benefit from that, but youth with disabilities, their parents can help their youth develop basic work skills at home. This is where I was talking about you can talk to the student's teacher about what can we do. You know, he wants to do something with mechanics. What can I do at home to help explore that and help develop and create, you know, the ability to really dive deeper into what being a mechanic is like. Maybe their aptitude is more of a outgoing personality and them working with other individuals or other, you know, more of a job that has more of a social aspect to it. Maybe that's more of their thing. You're going to want to reinforce these things that the school is doing in order for that to be really ingrained and really take good, effective understanding by your student or your child, so that when it comes to being employed, they've had the experience of using these skills over the last couple of years to implement them in their employment. And the next one is the using the personal networks. I talked about, you know, Aunt Rose has worked in a dentist office, or your uncle's been in this profession, whatever, or the neighbor likes to do, you know, whatever, your friends, your neighbors, any of your community connections, whatever they do. And if it's even remotely like what your child thinks they want to do, find a way to get them to talk to each other. I mean, I spent numerous years working to the goal of becoming a pharmacist until I decided I really didn't want to work as a pharmacist because I'd had it with being a pharmacy tech. And looking at the schooling, I finally decided that's not what I wanted to do with my life. And it didn't help me find what I really wanted to do, which was be a mom to a great kid. But you know, there were things I wished I had explored before I set that out as my original goal. You know, there were things I didn't know when I set out to say, oh, I'm going to become a pharmacist. You know, it's just like the kid I was talking about last week that wanted to be a NASCAR driver. I mean, you know, maybe NASCAR driving is the driver itself. It's not obtainable, but working some way in that field might be possible. You never know. And you can always work with local services and stores. A lot of professionals work to mentor individuals with disabilities and provide them kind of on the job exploration and experience so that they can see, hey, what is it really like to, you know, to have this job? Is it really something I want to do for the rest of my life, or is it just something I'm fascinated with? So use those connections that you have, you know, either through work, you know, your own work experience, through family, friends, relatives, neighbors. Don't rule anything out. I mean, anybody could be a great source of information as far as a particular type of employment. And so in summary, you know, we've talked about the IEP and the adult service providers, what school-based learning is and versus work-based learning, and what the role of the family has to do with getting to some of these goals. Does anybody have any questions about some of those aspects that we've covered? We also have different types of employment. So when talking to an individual with disabilities, there are some that have the cognitive skills to actually go into competitive employment, and that consists of, you know, more competitive wages, higher, you know, more responsibility, with regular supervision or no extensive individualized supports. A lot of individuals with disabilities really go into the category of supported employment, which gives those with the most significant disabilities an opportunity to work in an inclusive environment. Normally, they may be connected with a job coach who usually provides ongoing help in learning and adjusting to and doing the job. Supported employment also involves paid employment at a job in the regular business community. It could also be a job that works in the environment, such as something outdoors, something that's more skill or labor involved. A lot of times this may fall into being a good match if they have a particular interest in something. I know I have a friend, her son loves playing with those magnetic balls, and he's actually going to go to the junior college and start studying architecture. He builds these unbelievable structures with these magnetic things, but in the past, his autism has really prevented him from taking higher educational courses. But he's gotten to the point now where I think he's going to really flourish in a vocational type setting and learn things possibly about construction or doing actual architecture. Because I mean, he can tell you the difference between different homes, and is that a two-door, is that a modern colonial, or I don't know. I mean, it's just fascinating. But when he was a little boy, he was all about bugs, and we thought for sure he was going to go into something to do with bugs. I mean, we were at camp one time and he caught a snake, and none of us were very happy about that. But anyway, some individuals will fall into the supported category, and then you've got those with more severe disabilities that may fall into the sheltered. And the sheltered is more of a self-contained environment. They work really closely with a lot of supervision. They may be given simpler tasks to work on than what somebody in the supported or the competitive type of employment would have. But it's still having a means of earning a wage and having something productive to do with their time after school, or after they've graduated from school. So there's a lot of different ways to consider this. And then there's natural supports in employment. And this is where I talked briefly about before, where there are support needs that an employer can provide. If a employee needed special equipment in order to use their computer, if they needed special equipment or special access to the office that they work in, this is where an employer would provide those kind of supports. It would also help that, say, if you had a child that had autism or had severe ADHD and had a hard time connecting with coworkers, or actually interacting with other coworkers, but it wasn't something that was necessarily applicable for them to perform their jobs. This is where an employer gets the opportunity to actually help that individual. I don't want to say mainstream or integrate better, but it does give the employer an opportunity to help them integrate with their coworkers or whoever their direct report is. And sometimes this even includes like a job coach or a mentor that helps shadow the employee that the employer provides. There's also things such as community services, and the entitlement services ends with the completion of high school. However, there are services that are generally based in the community that help with keeping gainful employment. They do investigating and apply. They do applications for adult services. Basically providing the job coaching or the interview coaching, or they provide you with information on how to properly assimilate with your coworkers, or how do you interact socially with a coworker or a direct report, or what do you need to tell your employer about your disability. These are things that you should start actually applying for when in high school. Some of the community services they are federally funded, and therefore they have wait lists. Some of them have 5-6 year wait lists. So it would be better to go ahead and get on any possible wait lists that are needed and not need them later than to need them and have to begin the wait process. And the Department of Aging and Disability Services is a really great website to get onto and find different programs that they have, because you can actually enter in a zip code and it'll give you access to the closest vocational or the closest job coaching or classes on life skills or classes on independent living. I think they even have things that even go down to cooking classes. If your child's ultimate goal is just living on their own in either a group setting or an independent living apartment, this organization, the Department of Aging and Disability, can give you all the information of the services provided in your immediate area. And they break it down by county and even down to city. And if there's no services available in your direct city, they will let you know where is the closest city in your county in order to start applying for some of these services or getting on some of these wait lists. So services that are provided by local authority. In Tarrant County, I can tell you that there's a great organization called IDD Services of Tarrant County, and the IDD Council actually provides work trainings. They provide parent trainings. There's other organizations like myself with Partners Resource Network where we can provide, we have youth trainings. Matter of fact, in September, we're going to be launching a financial literacy program for individuals with disabilities and their parents to attend. But this all comes down to, and if you have a child that's got a case manager, you've probably heard the term individual service plan. That's another lovely one like IEP that you will hear over and over and over again. But this is their specific individualized service plan that will list out what supports do they need out in the community to be able to attend things within the community, even if it's just making sure that you live in say you have a child in a wheelchair, making sure that they live in a wheelchair accessible environment, or making sure that they have programs available to them that are wheelchair accessible. This is also going to cover things pretty much like group settings or social skills or even life skill classes. These are all things that need to be considered and actually written out as a roadmap, in essence, of we need to do this, this, and this in order to get to this ultimate goal. And ISPs are really developed, with a lot of input from counselors, from case managers, and most importantly, parents. You know your kid better than anybody else. And so you are, just like the ARD meetings, you are the ultimate case manager when it comes to your child's ISP. A lot of times there are other concerns to be considered. These things really don't necessarily apply directly to post-secondary, but they are things to take into consideration. If you lived in an area that didn't have any kind of junior college that allowed any individuals with disability to attend, I know Tarrant County and Dallas County community colleges all have program and support services in order for individuals to attend post-secondary schooling. There are different rules and regulations than what IDEA covers in the K through 12 atmosphere. But the great thing is there are a lot of, and this actually should be changed to mental health or my health, my resources. They haven't gone by mental health and mental retardation in a couple years, but MHMR of Tarrant County and Dallas County, almost every county in the state of Texas has an MHMR, and they can provide additional support services in order for your child to properly experience their adult life and be integrated and have that community involvement that they want. So we've basically covered in this last section the different types of employment, all the different natural supports and employment supports that go into consideration and are provided by ADA, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act. A lot of you may want to study that if you have any kind of physical impairments or any severe neurological deficits or learning disabilities, basically just to be educated in what ADA states as far as public assistance and employment and all of the guidance that employers have to follow or have to provide. So it is good to be educated in what ADA states, and ADA changes from time to time. It hasn't changed. It's been the same about for the last decade, but I'm pretty sure that, you know, there's been a few different additions and amendments, but it's always best to really fully understand what the actual law states versus what an employer might state they have to provide or not provide. A lot of times you may get kickback and an employer will say, I don't have to provide that. Well, yeah, you do. So just know that even though your child's gone ahead and graduated high school, has possibly gone on to secondary, you know, education as far as a junior college or college, you may still have the job of advocating for quite some time. But the great thing is if you've done your job right, you've taught your child how to self-advocate. And it may be something that they, you know, they go on and they flourish in it and they do great by being able to learn how to stand up for themselves. But that's, you know, that's the ultimate goal, I think, as parents. We want our child to be able to, you know, become a productive citizen of the world and have those opportunities just like anybody else. And they deserve all those opportunities just like anybody else. And so I do want to make one correction here. Our actual website is prntexas.org, but the dads.state.tx.us is the correct website for the Department of Aging and Disability Services. And that website's really great to resource too, because it's going to give you down to the zip code what you have access to. And if it's not available in your zip code, it will tell you the closest available place, but it will also explain things that are in ADA and different opportunities as far as vocational schools, as far as, you know, even the living skills that some individuals need just to be able to go and work the microwave. I mean, they have some unbelievably varying degrees of classes available for your students. So, I mean, there's nothing that they don't leave it unexplored. And it's really, it's fun. I mean, if you really take the time to spend these high school years or this approaching time to adulthood, exploring different types of employment, as far as, you know, do you want to cook? Do you like helping others? Do you like, you know, I mean, there's been a lot of kids that have come through and done really well with doing their self-advocacy, and now they're helping other individuals with disabilities learn how to advocate for themselves. So you never know, you really never know what your child's going to excel at until you start exploring all the different options that are out there. Thank you for letting me come teach y'all a little more information about the adulthood component. You know, if y'all have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask.
Did y'all have any other questions for her? I don't think so. All right.
No, I didn't. No, I'm good.
Okay. All right. I have your presentation, and then, like I said, this goes up online so that the rest of our membership can log on and look at it on our website. So thank you for your presentation, and thank you both, Christine and Stephanie, for hanging out with us.
Yes.
Yes, thank you for the information. Yes.
Yeah, and if you have any direct, you know, if you think of something later, I can put it in the chat, my email address, if you want to ask something specific. We certainly get a lot of questions after the fact. And I mean, sometimes, I don't know if y'all are like me, but sometimes something comes to me at like 1 in the morning and I'm thinking, oh, wait a minute, I could have asked that. Or didn't she mention something about vocational school? I mean, whatever it might be that comes up, we are available Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5 to answer questions. I'm big into answering just random questions that come up that I get via email. A lot of times it's just one of those things that it just comes to you and you're like, yeah, I should have asked about that. Or I wonder if she could answer that. Or I can promise you, if I don't know the answer, I know somebody who does. And that's part of what we do at Partners Resources. We really help we want to help parents and individuals find everything they need to have the most productive life possible. And to make sure as parents, you never have that feeling of doing this alone. And I'm pretty sure Down Syndrome Partners in North Texas, partnership with North Texas is the same as far as having that community and having that ability to, hey, what did you do with this? Or how did you approach that? And so even if it's just I've had a bad day, or it was a bad day for my kid. I mean, I've had a few parents call and just want to vent and just say, what do I do now? So, you know, give us a call or give us an email. Our website, prntexas.org, has got a lot of stuff on it too. We've also got webinars recorded on there as well, and a lot of additional information.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
All right, guys.
Thank you so much for your time.
All right. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night, Heather.
Bye.